Hi, and welcome to the third video for Module 7. In the last video, we set up our view controller structure with a tab bar controller and 5 content views. What we're going to do now is populate these content views scene by scene, and we'll do that by adding some controls to each of the content views, and we'll start with the date picker because it's the simplest picker. It's the simplest because the data that it uses, dates, are predefined. So it's a little bit simpler in that we don't have to set up things called a data source and a delegate for the date picker. So let's add a date picker to our view controller here. And I'm going to go ahead and add some constraints to it. Let's make it 0 on the left and the right to the edge, and we'll fix this distance here as it is to the bottom. We'll add 3 constraints. Well, it shouldn't be off-centered there. Let's go to our size instructor and see what happened. Trailing space to superview is default. To superview equal. That's okay. Actually, I'm going to delete those constraints. No, that one's okay. Let's move it down just a little so it's not overlapping. Make that 44. Okay, that gets it down there. Not sure why that's. Maybe that'll show up right when it runs. I'm going to leave it alone for the moment. And I want to also add a button. And we're going to call the button select. And when it runs, it's going to cause the date to be displayed. In the interest of making this faster, let's go ahead and just copy that code from the book source code, and we'll talk about it. So let me pull up the code for the date picker view controller, and let's go and get the action method for that button. We'll also need to hook up an outlet for the picker itself. So let me grab the action method code. We'll put it in here, just anywhere. And we're going to need to add an outlet as well. So let's get the storyboard back up and the assistant editor. And we'll make this go away so we've got more room. We'll put our outlet in. We'll call the outlet date picker to match up with the name over here that's used in the code, and it's of a type date picker, so we'll connect that up. And now we need to connect the button, so we'll control drag up to the view controller, and it's on button pressed that we want to run when the button is pressed. So we've connected our outlet and our action method. Let's talk about what the action method does. So the first thing we do is grab the date from the date picker. Dates are a built-in type in iOS, and it's a sort of an object type. and we'll construct a message saying that the date and time we selected is that date, and we can use this slash and parentheses operator to convert it to a string. Then we'll put up our alert. So we'll create an alert object with this title, with the message we just created, and the .alert style, and we'll create an action out of that alert, or we'll create an action, add that alert, add the action to the alert, and then present it. So exactly like we've done in the past. And let's run that and see what happens. So we'll select today at 4:22 p.m. as our, let's just move it a little bit. We'll make it Tuesday, May 21st, 4:21 p.m. We'll click select. And what we notice is that the time is not 4:21:21 or even 16:21:21, which is what we would expect if it were in 24-hour mode. Instead, it's 21:21, which is 5 hours ahead. Now, why would that be? Well, I'm in the Central Time Zone. Central Time Zone at this time of the year in Daylight Savings Time is UTC -5. UTC, or Universal Time Code, is the time zone, including Greenwich, England, and we're 5 hours ahead of that. So, or we're 5 hours behind it. So the code we've got doesn't handle the time zone. Time zone you set in the settings of an iPhone device. The simulator grabs its time zone from the settings in the Mac computer you're running it on. What we're going to have to do is massage that date a little bit to get it into the correct format for our own time zone. So to do that, I'm going to grab the code for that I wrote in my version of this app that I demoed at the beginning, and we'll put those lines in, and we can talk about calendar formatters and things like that get a date to be correct for a given time zone. So let me find the project, Spring 19 Pickers, I believe it's called. Oops, wrong thing. It's the date picker controller. And oh, wrong project. I want date picker test. Or pickers test. Sorry, pickers test. And I'm going to grab this little piece of code right here. And it'll go after let date equal date picker dot date. So go back to the project we're working on. And get rid of this. That should get rid of all our errors. And let me talk about what's going on here. So I create an object called a date formatter, which you don't really need to know anything about it other than that it lets you modify the way a date is displayed when it's converted to a string. We'll create a calendar object, which will initialize as the current date and time. The important thing about that is that calendar objects have the time zone as one of their attributes. And we can set the time zone then in the date formatter with the time zone from the calendar. We've got to set a style for the date and time, and these won't look exactly like they looked the first time. They're not the default styles when we just did slash parenthesis date parenthesis. But then we'll apply the date formatter to the date that we grabbed from the picker and create a date string, and then that's what we'll use when we display it. So let's stop the simulator and rerun it now with that code in there. And we'll just use the default date, but we click select, and now we get exactly what was selected. The time zone's correct. So that little piece isn't in the book, but I thought it was worth doing because in general you don't want UTC dates. You want dates in your local time zone. So that's how you do it. I'm actually going to bring this video to a close here, and in the next video we will look at the single component picker, which is a little bit more complicated in that you've got to supply it with data. You can't just you can't auto-generate data for Star Wars characters the way you can for dates. So I'll see you in the next video.